Please consider supporting our channel by liking this video and subscribing for more content. Echoes of World War II, Unleashing the Storm. The primary cause of World War II, was the aggressive expansionist policies of Nazi Germany under the leadership of Adolf Hitler. However, it is important to note that the causes of World War II were complex and multifaceted, with a combination of political, economic, and ideological factors contributing to the outbreak of the war. Some key factors that contributed to the start of World War II include Treaty of Versailles. The harsh terms imposed on Germany by the Treaty of Versailles, which ended World War I, created a sense of resentment and economic instability in the country. The treaty placed full blame for the war on Germany and Austria-Hungary and imposed heavy reparations, territorial losses, and military restrictions on Germany. These conditions fostered a desire for revenge and a quest to regain lost territories, which Hitler and the Nazi Party exploited to gain support. Rise of fascism and Nazism. The rise of fascist and totalitarian regimes in Europe, particularly in Germany and Italy, created an environment of aggressive nationalism and militarism. Adolf Hitler's Nazi Party came to power in Germany in 1933, promoting a racist ideology of German racial superiority and territorial expansion. Appeasement policy. The policy of appeasement pursued by Western democracies, such as Britain and France, in the face of German aggression, also played a role in the outbreak of World War II. These countries, scarred by the memory of World War I and burdened by economic difficulties, were initially reluctant to confront Hitler's territorial ambitions, hoping that concessions and diplomatic negotiations would prevent another major conflict. Failure of the League of Nations. The League of Nations, established after World War I as an international organization to maintain peace and resolve conflicts, proved ineffective in dealing with the aggressor nations. German expansionism. Hitler pursued a policy of territorial expansion, seeking to unite all German-speaking people and establish Lebensraum, living space, for the German population. He first violated the Treaty of Versailles by remilitarizing the Rhineland, then annexed Austria and the Sudetenland region of Czechoslovakia. These actions eventually led to the invasion of Poland in 1939 and the subsequent declaration of war by Britain and France. Failure of diplomacy. Diplomatic efforts to resolve the escalating tensions, such as the Munich Agreement of 1938, proved ineffective in preventing further aggression. The failure to effectively address Hitler's expansionist ambitions and the lack of a unified response from the international community contributed to the outbreak of war. The German invasion of Poland in 1939 was a significant event that marked the beginning of World War II. On September 1, 1939, the German military, under the command of Adolf Hitler, launched a surprise attack on Poland. This invasion was preceded by a series of events, including Germany's aggressive expansionist policies, the signing of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact between Germany and the Soviet Union, and the failure of diplomatic efforts to resolve the escalating tensions. The invasion of Poland was characterized by a combination of swift and coordinated military operations, known as Blitzkrieg or Lightning War. German forces used a combination of armored units, infantry, and air power to rapidly advance into Polish territory. They employed tactics such as overwhelming firepower, strategic bombing, and rapid troop movements to quickly overpower Polish defenses. Despite the Polish resistance, the German forces, aided by the Soviet Union, which invaded Poland from the east on September 17, 1939, achieved significant territorial gains. Poland was divided between Germany and the Soviet Union, with the western part of the country falling under German control and the eastern part under Soviet control. This marked the beginning of a brutal occupation that resulted in widespread human suffering, including the persecution and extermination of millions of Polish Jews and other groups by the Nazis. The German invasion of Poland triggered a response from Britain and France, who had guaranteed Poland's security. On September 3, 1939, both countries declared war on Germany, thus escalating the conflict into a global war. The invasion of Poland set the stage for further German aggression and the subsequent expansion of the war, ultimately leading to the involvement of numerous countries and the devastating consequences of World War II. The immediate consequences of Britain and France declaring war on Germany after the invasion of Poland were as follows. Outbreak of World War II. The declaration of war by Britain and France marked the official beginning of World War II. The conflict, which had been escalating through Germany's aggressive actions and territorial expansion, now involved major European powers and quickly spread across the globe. Phony War. After the declaration of war, a period known as the Phony War or the Sitzkrieg followed. It lasted from September 1939 to April 1940 and was characterized by a lack of major military operations on the Western Front. Both sides were hesitant to launch large-scale offensives, resulting in a period of relative calm but heightened tension. German occupation of Poland. Despite the declaration of war, Germany's invasion of Poland had already achieved significant territorial gains. The occupation of Poland continued, with the western part of the country under German control, and the eastern part falling under Soviet control due to the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. The Polish government went into exile, and Polish resistance efforts continued throughout the war. Limited military actions. Although the Phony War was characterized by a lack of major offensives, there were still some limited military actions. For example, the British Royal Navy initiated naval blockades and engaged in naval operations against German warships. There were also minor land skirmishes and aerial bombardments. The Maginot Line and the Siegfried Line. France had built the Maginot Line, a series of fortifications along its border with Germany, in an attempt to deter German aggression. However, with the German invasion of Poland, it became clear that the Maginot Line was bypassed by the German forces. In response, Germany fortified its western border with the Siegfried Line. Evacuation of civilians. With the outbreak of war, there were immediate efforts to evacuate civilians, particularly children, from major cities in Britain and France, anticipating the possibility of bombings and air raids. This led to large-scale evacuations of children to safer areas in the countryside. The conflict would continue to escalate, with further military actions and the involvement of additional countries in the subsequent years. The Phony War lasted from September 1939 to April 1940 and involved the major European powers, particularly Britain and France, against Germany. Here are some key features and events of the Phony War. Declarations of war. The Phony War began with the declaration of war by Britain and France on Germany following the German invasion of Poland. The declarations were made on September 3, 1939. Limited offensive actions. Despite being at war, there were only limited offensive actions during this period. The French launched the Saar offensive in September 1939, advancing into the Saar region, but it was a brief and inconclusive operation. There were also minor skirmishes and artillery duels along the Franco-German border. The Maginot Line and the Siegfried Line. The Maginot Line, a network of fortifications built by France along its border with Germany, played a prominent role during the Phony War. It was intended to deter German aggression, but the German forces bypassed it by invading Belgium and the Netherlands during the later stages of the war. In response, Germany fortified its western border with the Siegfried Line. Aerial bombardment. There were sporadic aerial bombardments by both sides during this period, primarily targeting military installations and infrastructure. However, the air attacks were relatively limited in scale and intensity compared to the later stages of the war. Naval blockades and U-boat operations. The British Royal Navy initiated naval blockades in an attempt to restrict German maritime activities. German U-boats, submarines, conducted operations against British and French naval vessels and merchant ships, leading to several sinkings and skirmishes at sea. Winter lull. The winter months of 1939 to 1940 witnessed a significant decrease in military activities on the Western Front. The cold weather and the difficult terrain in the region contributed to a lull in major offensives. End of the Phony War. The Phony War came to an end in April 1940 when Germany launched its invasion of Denmark and Norway. This marked the beginning of a more active phase of the war in Western Europe. Overall, the Phony War was a period of relative quiet and limited military actions, characterized by a lack of major offensives and a sense of uncertainty. It ended with the German Blitzkrieg and the subsequent rapid conquest of several European countries, including France. During the Phony War, both the Maginot Line and the Siegfried Line played significant roles as defensive fortifications on the Western Front. Here's how they were involved. The Maginot Line, French. The Maginot Line was a system of fortifications constructed by France along its border with Germany. It stretched from the Swiss border to the Ardennes forest. The purpose of the Maginot Line was to deter and defend against a potential German invasion by providing a heavily fortified barrier. During the Phoney War, the Maginot Line played a defensive role. The French relied on its strength and believed that it would deter any German offensive. Consequently, they committed a significant portion of their forces to manning and defending the Maginot Line, which contributed to the lack of major offensive actions by France during this period. The Siegfried Line, German, the Siegfried Line, known as the West Wall by the Germans, was a defensive line built by Germany along its western border with France. It consisted of fortified bunkers, artillery emplacements, and obstacles designed to slow down and repel any potential French or Allied invasion. During the Phoney War, the Siegfried Line played a defensive role for Germany. The German forces used it as a defensive position and a deterrent against any French or Allied offensive. By fortifying their western border, the Germans aimed to secure their flank and divert any potential attacks away from their main efforts in other theaters of the war. Overall, both the Maginot Line and the Siegfried Line contributed to the stalemate and lack of major military actions during the Phoney War. The defensive mindset of both sides, combined with a belief in the impregnability of these fortifications, led to a period of relative calm and limited offensives along the Western Front. However, as the war progressed, the Maginot Line was bypassed by the German invasion through Belgium and the Netherlands, while the Siegfried Line became less significant as the focus shifted to more mobile warfare and extensive German offensives. The bypassing of the Maginot Line had a significant impact on the outcome of the Phoney War and ultimately on the course of World War II. Here are the key ways in which it influenced the conflict. German invasion of France. The bypassing of the Maginot Line allowed the German forces to execute a successful invasion of France. Instead of directly attacking the heavily fortified Maginot Line, the Germans launched their offensive through Belgium and the Netherlands, outflanking the French defenses. This strategy exploited a gap in the French defenses and caught the Allies off guard. Fall of France. The bypassing of the Maginot Line contributed to the quick collapse of France. The German forces advanced rapidly through the Ardennes region and outmaneuvered the French and Allied armies. The French were unable to effectively counter the German offensive, leading to a series of defeats and the ultimate surrender of France in June 1940. The bypassing of the Maginot Line exposed its limitations and showcased the effectiveness of German mobile warfare tactics, particularly the use of armored units. Re-evaluation of defensive strategies. The bypassing of the Maginot Line forced a re-evaluation of defensive strategies. The perceived invincibility of the Maginot Line was shattered, highlighting the need for more flexible and mobile defenses. The success of the German offensive demonstrated the importance of combined arms operations, rapid maneuverability, and exploiting weak points in the enemy's defenses. Shift in military doctrine. The bypassing of the Maginot Line influenced military doctrines and strategies moving forward. It led to a greater emphasis on mobile warfare, armored divisions, and the integration of air power. The concept of the Blitzkrieg or lightning war employed by the Germans during the invasion of France became a focal point for future military planning. Psychological impact. The bypassing of the Maginot Line had a significant psychological impact on the Allies. It shattered the confidence and sense of security that had been associated with the fortifications. It also highlighted the need for more proactive and offensive strategies to counter the German advances. Overall, the bypassing of the Maginot Line during the Phoney War fundamentally altered the course of the conflict. It exposed the limitations of static defenses and emphasized the importance of mobility, flexibility, and combined arms operations in modern warfare. It was a pivotal moment that contributed to the fall of France and the subsequent German dominance in Western Europe during the early years of World War II. Help us reach a wider audience by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Your support goes a long way in helping us create more awesome videos.